My name is Clara, and I am 31 years old. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman to tell a story like this, the kind where betrayal doesn't just cut you once, but slices away at your sense of self until you're left hollow. Yet here I am speaking into the quiet, hoping that by pouring out my truth, I can stitch together the pieces of myself that still remain. I didn't marry for wealth or status. I married for what I thought was love. For 7 years, I shared a house, a bed, a life with a man I believed was my partner, my teammate. In the early years, we were good together, maybe not perfect, but happy. We laughed easily, leaned on each other when the world felt heavy, and even when life didn't give us everything we wanted, we thought we had enough. But over time, love doesn't always fade with a bang, it slips away like water through your fingers. Ours did. Slowly. Quietly. Until one day I looked across the dinner table and realized I was staring at a stranger. He still wore the ring, still shared the bills, but the spark that had once tied us together had been buried under layers of silence. I thought maybe it was me, that I wasn't fun enough, exciting enough, passionate enough. So I tried. I threw myself into making our home feel alive. I took over bills, picked up the slack, kept smiling, even when my insides were collapsing. I thought if I could be enough, maybe he'd come back to me. But he didn't. He started working late, then later, until late became overnight, until conferences and team retreats became routine, until the guest room became more his than our own bedroom. Every time I asked if something was wrong, he brushed me off. Every time I begged for us to try date nights, counseling, even just one honest conversation, he shut me down. His silence was louder than shouting, and that silence broke me piece by piece. Then came the retreat. Vegas, he said. A whole week. Team building. He said it like it was normal, but I knew better. No company sends people to Vegas for 7 days just to bond. My gut screamed, but I swallowed my fear, because admitting it out loud meant facing the truth that I was losing him, maybe had already lost him. And then the message came. Thursday night. I was sitting alone, scrolling numbly through my phone when the buzz rattled my hand. A photo appeared. Him, and another woman, his coworker. They were standing in front of what looked like a courthouse, both smiling, both glowing with the kind of happiness he hadn't shared with me in years. And beneath the photo, his words, "Just married my coworker. You're pathetic, by the way, for not calling me all through this retreat. Do you know what it feels like when your heart tries to beat and breaks itself instead?" I stared at the screen until the edges blurred. Betrayal, humiliation, confusion, they all crashed over me like a tide I couldn't swim out of. But in the middle of that drowning moment, I found an anchor. I typed one word, cool, because what else was there to say? A man who could stand in front of a courthouse with another woman while still legally married to me and then mock me for not begging wasn't a man I owed tears to anymore. I took a screenshot, not for memory but for proof. And then I called the only person I could trust, my old friend from college, a lawyer with a sharp mind and a sharper sense of justice. That call was the beginning of the end. Not just for my marriage, but for the version of myself who thought silence was safer than truth. Type continued to receive the next part. ChatGPT nói. The lawyer listened in silence as I spilled everything. My husband's lies, his retreat, the photo, the cruel message that ended with him calling me pathetic. When I finally stopped, breathless and shaking, she didn't gasp or pity me. She just said, "Good. Now we have evidence." Her calm steadied me. She explained how the screenshot could become the cornerstone of my divorce case. How we could not only prove infidelity, but establish cruelty and abandonment. She told me we could freeze joint accounts, secure the house, and make sure he didn't slither away with assets he didn't deserve. For the first time in weeks, I felt the ground beneath my feet again. That night, as I packed a small bag, I realized I wasn't just preparing for a legal battle, I was preparing for a rebirth. My husband thought his Vegas wedding was the end of me, but it was only the end of my silence. Days turned into weeks. Word spread quickly, as it always does in offices where gossip flows faster than coffee. His coworkers whispered about the Vegas wedding, about the text, about how quickly he flaunted his new wife without even finalizing his divorce. The same man who had called me pathetic was now the subject of laughter, disgust, and pity. His reputation crumbled not because I screamed, but because truth has a way of echoing louder than lies. Meanwhile, I poured myself into the parts of life he had once dimmed. I reconnected with friends I had lost to his coldness. I picked up painting again, letting colors bleed on canvas, the way my heart had bled in silence. I built a rhythm of mornings filled with coffee and sunlit windows, evenings filled with books and laughter shared with people who actually wanted to be near me. But healing isn't a straight line. Some nights I stared at the ceiling, haunted by the image of that courthouse photo. I heard his mocking words, the smug tone of, "You're pathetic, by the way." And then I remembered the way I had replied, "Cool." Just one word, cold, sharp, final. That word wasn't weakness, it was armor. The divorce battle dragged on, as battles always do when pride is on the line. He fought to keep what wasn't his, tried to paint me as bitter and unstable. But the evidence didn't lie. The text, the marriage license from Vegas, the testimonies of his coworkers all lined up against him like dominoes waiting to fall. And when they did, I didn't gloat. I didn't scream. I just signed the papers and walked out of the courtroom lighter than I had in years. But I wasn't done yet. Revenge, you see, doesn't always come in fire and fury. Sometimes it comes in silence. Sometimes it comes in the life you rebuild without the person who tried to destroy you. In the months after the divorce was finalized, I discovered that healing wasn't just about moving on. It was about reclaiming the parts of myself I had abandoned. The house no longer echoed with his absence. Instead, it began to pulse with my presence. I painted the walls in colors he would have hated, filled the rooms with plants and laughter from friends he had once pushed away, and every corner felt like a reclamation of my own soul. Meanwhile, his life began to unravel. The Vegas marriage that started with champagne and courthouse photos quickly soured. Rumors trickled back through mutual acquaintances, the fights, the money troubles, the coworkers who stopped respecting him once his hypocrisy came to light. The same man who had texted, "You're pathetic," now had to live with a reputation that mocked him louder than any words I could ever say. But I didn't linger on his downfall. I poured myself into growth. I took the promotion I once turned down because he said it would distract from the home. I launched a small side business with my art, selling prints online, and watched in awe as strangers valued what he had dismissed. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. Then one late evening, a message appeared on my phone. His name. My chest tightened, but I opened it. "I made a mistake. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen, remembering that night in Vegas, that cruel text, that smirk of triumph, as he thought he had broken me. And I realized something beautiful. I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel tempted. I felt nothing. Because true revenge isn't responding to the ones who betrayed you. It's living in such a way that their opinion no longer matters. I turned off my phone, lit a candle, and painted until dawn. If you've ever been betrayed, if someone you trusted tried to erase your worth, let my story remind you, their cruelty does not define you. What defines you is how you rise, how you reclaim yourself, how you build a life so luminous that the people who hurt you can't even look at it without seeing their own shadows. So if this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, when was the moment you realized your worth was never theirs to decide?